guys, and invite everybody. Just want to say thank you, not invite you, you're already here, but I want to give you guys gratitude for joining us on a Friday afternoon. Of all the things you have going on in your world right now, you're choosing to invest in, quite frankly, increasing your skill set. Before we jump into avoiding the 3 downfalls of overpricing a home in today's market, which I can't wait for today's content, guys. I know this is a big opportunity for a lot of agents right now. But first and foremost, we want to kick things off just introducing you to a brand new fast track group coaching program that MAPS is getting ready to launch next week. And it's called Role Play Rumble. So I want you guys to ask yourself a question. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation with someone? And we know that as agents, the goal of the conversation is to lead to what? The appointment. So have you ever found yourself in a conversation where you're on the verge of that next step, which is setting the appointment, and maybe you got tied up and didn't know what to say, or just weren't super confident in what was coming out of your mouth next? Well, guys, we know that practice and role play is one of Gary Keller's parts of his job description as a real estate agent. And quite frankly, and Emily, I think you would agree, we don't do enough of that as agents. Yeah. We don't do enough practice and role play. So Role Play Rumble, guys, is a safe space for agents just like you to come together 4 times a week. This is a uniquely designed fast track group coaching program with high levels of engagement where we can all practice and role play role specific conversations and dialogues together such that we can actually increase our conversion rates outside in the field. Okay. We launch next week, guys. I know we've got some information being dropped in the chat for you guys to review, but we want you guys to take a look, and it might not be for you, but if you're looking to really hone in on your skill set as we move into the 4th quarter of the year, jump in. It's a subscription style group coaching program where you get your identified coach. You know, Emily's coaching the seller version. I'm coaching the buyer version. We've got Anna Kruger coaching lead conversion and Megan Henry on database. Guys, this is kind of the 4 big buckets of skill set improvement right here, no matter what market you're in, no matter what city or state you're in. We all have the opportunity moving into the 4th quarter of this year to sharpen our skill set. And, you know, at Mega Agent Camp, actually, Emily, I remember Gary's talking about how October is our dress rehearsal for 2024. Yep. And we are practicing and role playing. That's our dress rehearsal to really impact our business for 2024. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. There's information in the chat box. Click the link. We'd love to have you guys join us for Role Play Rumble. Emily, I'm going to toss it to you to tell us all about the overpricing mistakes we want to avoid as agents.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Hey, everyone. Let me answer in the chat, yes or no. Is the seller's market in your area getting more challenging? Has it been more challenging this year or in the last 90 days? Yes or no? And I know that that's a pretty broad question. But when you're meeting with sellers or you're conversing with sellers, is it harder to get to a yes?
I'm off mute and I'm going to say it's a heck yes, but it's the yes on pricing. We're getting the appointment. Right. What we're not nailing is the pricing strategy.
That's exactly right. So this is interactive, y'all. So feel free to participate. We want you to get as much out of this as possible. So I want to start off with what's really happening in the macro market. And when I say macro market, I'm really talking about the national market. So when we look at, y'all seen these slides before, this is from the National Association of Realtors. This is year-over-year home sales annually. Okay. And so when we look at this slide, we'll see that the height of the market was in 2005, right? And then what happened in 2006, Sarah?
Well, I wasn't in real estate in 2006, I'll say that. But I was actually in college. And but in 2006, you can see on the screen, interest rates were up. Yeah. Is this interest rates? No, it's home sales. Sorry, home sales are up. I was thinking it was a different slide. In 2006, we actually started to see home sales come down. The market was starting to decline.
That's exactly right. We saw a little dip. And then in 2007, we saw a larger dip, right? And then in 2008, another slight dip. So when there's a lot of media out there right now that what's happening with the market, is it going to crash, right? Which leads to seller uncertainty when it comes to pricing, right? Because they already have these thoughts prior to meeting you. Y'all agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now what's interesting is looking at 2021 to 2022 to 2023. It looks familiar, doesn't it? So what I want you to write down is that number of home sales is the leading indicator of the market. It is the leading indicator. And if we go to the next slide, what we're going to find is our lagging indicator. This is what sellers care about. Home prices are the lagging indicator. Now, Sarah, see back in 2005, remember that slight dip to 2006 and then the larger dip to 2008 and that decline? What's interesting is that we didn't see that when it comes to the pricing. We actually didn't see that until 2008 and then 2009, and therefore, right? And what's interesting is that it's because the leading indicator is the number of home sales, and it takes a little bit for the market to catch up, right? For the market to adjust when it comes to home pricing. And when you look at what's happened the last 3 years, again, on that stair step down, because history does tend to repeat itself, what you'll see is that it's similar here when it comes to pricing, okay? The prices aren't really going down. They're slightly going down like this year, but not drastically, right? So when you hear sellers and they say, I can't get as much as I could, right? Is that 100% true? And that's what we need to get clear on when we meet them. Okay. Because if you look, it really took, again, 2005 to 2006, 2006 to 2007, and 2007 to 2008. That was 2 years later after massive dips in history on the number of home sales that it took for the market to adjust. Now, if you follow the same pattern, if history were to repeat itself, now I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a fortune teller, right? And so, but if history were to repeat itself, it would yield that prices could come down. Now, there are other economic factors of that, right? Such as inventory, right? Lack of supply equals a higher demand. And yet the problem is that sellers are thinking in the thought process that they can't get as much. And I would challenge as much compared to what? So if we want to go to the next slide, this is the conversation is sellers want to overprice their home, right? Anyone on here who has had a seller who wants to list higher than what their home is worth based on a CMA? Yes? Okay. All right. So when we look at this, there are 3 different versions that I'm going to give you all in terms of how to get a seller in the state of being realistic. Because when a seller is realistic, that does wonders when it comes to selling a home. Because the number one factor on if a home is going to sell or not is price. Mm-hmm. Right? And there are conditions that meet the price. So what are the top 3 things that happen, or what are those downfalls when it comes to overpricing a home? So Sarah, if you were a seller and you were looking to overprice your property, right? You really want 450, but the numbers state that 425 is really the top of the market. Okay. Yeah. All right. I would say to you, I would say, hey, Sarah, what it sounds like to me is that you're looking to make the most amount of money as possible. Can we agree on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole goal of selling my house right now. I mean, when it's appreciated since we bought it, and I have a lot of equity tied up in here, and I want to sell it for the highest price possible so I can get my return. I want to do the same thing, Sarah. I want you to get the highest return as well. And you said something that's so key is you're exactly right. Your property value has rapidly increased over the last few years. We're, thank goodness for the appreciation, right? We are definitely so much higher in value than we would have been 3 years ago, which is a great position for you to be in as a seller. Here's what I would propose and what happens when we price over what the market is, especially in today's market, because as much as we have lower inventory, we have more inventory than we've had in the past. In fact, we've got double the inventory than we did at this point last year. Okay. So inventory for you, meaning your competition, if there's more homes on the market, there are more options for buyers. And you and I both know with interest rates where they are,
buyers are being more selective, right? So
Yeah.
here's what I would say. The first thing that I see that happens when we overprice over the market is we get high online views, yet we get low numbers of showings.
Is that a bad?
Well, yeah, because if buyers aren't shopping or touring the home, are they writing offers?
I see your point. Maybe not.
Yeah. And that's not doing us any good, right? The second thing I find is this is even more frustrating because we may get high online views, yet we're not getting the shoppers in. But then when you do get shoppers in and they don't write an offer, and now your hard work of keeping, the kids' beds made, right? The remembering to put your coffee cup in the dishwasher, the little things that you just don't think about that you always have, you want your home to show in its best condition. So when your hard work doesn't equate to an offer, how does that make you feel?
Well, that'd be frustrating. Like, I mean, I have 3 kids, and it's hard enough to keep my house clean, even in general. But if people were going to see my house and I was going to take the time to get it ready for showings, I would expect that they would make an offer.
That's exactly right. And the third thing, and this is even the most frustrating, is when we have high online views, or we have shoppers or we don't have shoppers, right? We're doing what we're calling the enemy of the market. We're occurring days on market. And when a home is on the market and it's on the market for an extended period of time and it doesn't sell, what do you think buyers are thinking about that home?
Something's wrong with it.
Something's wrong with it.
That's exactly right. Something's wrong with it. And you and I both know that there's absolutely nothing wrong with your home, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fingers crossed on inspections. No, but that's exactly right. And we don't want them to think that. So then what happens is when they either don't come see it and showings start to rapidly decline. Okay. Because they think something's wrong within their mind or it would have already sold, right? We must have photoshopped the photos.
Yeah.
Or we get a lowball offer. And that offer is less than the 425 that you and I are even saying is the height of the market. So let's go ahead and let's use pricing as a strategy to get as many buyers in, to create as much buzz as possible, as much competition as possible, such that you can blank insert their motivation.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. And I'm hearing you say that the more people we can like drive to the house with showings, that's what's going to indicate we're most likely to get an offer. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Because typically, I've been doing this for over 10 years. And here's what I found, Sarah, is that in the first 7 days, we should have at least 5 to 10 showings. If we don't have at least 5 showings in our market, what that means is we're typically without an offer about 8 to 12% off price. Okay. And if we have more than 5 to 10 showings, right? Let's just say more than 5 as the benchmark. If we have more than 5 and yet we don't yield an offer, we're going to evaluate that feedback together, but we're typically around 4 to 6% off price. Price is the number one reason that a home sells, right? Because no one wants to overpay, especially with interest rates the way they are.
Okay. That makes sense.
So let's go ahead and use pricing as a strategy and get it sold at the 425. Okay.
Whatever you say, Emily.
All right. What did you hear? What did y'all hear? This is, come off mute, put it in the chat. What did you hear? Don't be shy. We're all friends here.
And I would go on to ask, guys, if you're in a space where you can join us on camera, that's again where what I was speaking about when we first kicked this call off, guys, is not only do we want to create a safe space for a high level of engagement and this informational webinar, guys, this is also what we want to do in Role Play Rumble. We cannot increase our skill set if we aren't engaging, and we're all here to learn and grow together.
That's right. Netflix is way more entertaining than me, I promise.
Come on camera if you are dressed and you are at an appropriate location to be on camera. That's all I'll say.
Awesome. Lisa, yes.
Yeah, so I heard that, you just don't want to get the house you don't want it to go stale.
And why would that be important to a seller?
Well, because the longer it sits there, the staler it gets, the fewer people come by, and the few people are interested, and or more low balls you're going to get.
That's right. I'm pacing them into the future negative of their poor decision making, right? Because that's all it is. If you overprice a home, you're making a poor decision, because now we're going to have to deal with the repercussions of that and have harder conversations or fiercer conversations when it comes to price improvements and they're going to flip it back and go, well, how many of you have had someone say, well, what are you doing to actually market my home?
Mm-hmm. You aren't doing enough open houses.
Yeah.
So
when can you run those stats by again? I know it was like you get 8 to 12% off if you get how many showings?
So it's at least 5 to 10 showings. Between 5 and 10 showings, we should yield an offer in the first 7 days. So if we don't have 5 to 10 showings, at least a benchmark of 5 in the first 7 days, we're typically 8 to 12% off.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if we have more than 5 showings and yet we don't get an offer, you and I are going to review that feedback together. And yet we're probably 4 to 6% off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you always go back to their motivation, right? Because if their timeline is, well, a few months, it's fine. I'm still going to say that. I'm still going to look at those numbers, and we're still going to have a conversation on day 7, because that's my commitment to them as their agent. And yet we're going to just keep looking at these numbers and tracking those KPIs week over week, such that we make the educated decision. However, that's how I'm going to get them to meet me in the pricing in the beginning, so we don't even have to have that conversation later. Now, the other thing I like to do with sellers, I'm going to give you a different tactic, is when they say, oh, Emily, 6 months ago, my house, it would have flew off the shelf. It would have sold. I could have got 450. Like, I hear what you're saying and I see it, but I could have got 450. Y'all have sellers saying that to you? Because I know that I have recently. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I like to use analogies with people, because stories relate to others. And when you use an analogy, whether they can they can envision it in their mind, right? And when you get them envisioning it in their mind, they're thinking about it. And when they think about it, they relate to it, whether they can relate action-wise or not. So I like to use the analogy of a casino. So I would say, anyone like to go to casinos on here?
I mean, when family reunions in Vegas, I'll
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I like to use the analogy with a casino with my sellers. I like to say, okay, whether you gamble or not, let's think about it like this. If you walked into a casino with $100, okay, and you sit down at the blackjack tables, okay, and you're a couple hours in, you're having fun, right? You're making friends, and you're up to $500. And you're sitting there and you're like, well, gosh, like I'm hot. I'm on a heater. I'm not, I'm not going to leave. And so you negotiate with yourself, and you decide that you're going to just do a few more hands, right? And you say, I'm going to leave at this time at 10 o'clock. And 10 o'clock rolls around and you've got $275 now in chips. Did you win or did you lose? If you walked in with $100 and you walk out with $275, did you win or did you lose?
I'd say that's a win.
That's a win. Thank you, Harvey. That's exactly right. Everyone says that, by the way. Everyone agrees that it's a win. I've never had a seller say, well, I lost. They may say, well, man, I wish I would have, walked away at the 500, right? Of course you do. But that's woulda, coulda, shoulda. The reality is you didn't, but you still won. See, that's what we're doing right now in this market. You're woulda, coulda, shouldaing about a market a year ago, when you're still winning today. You're still getting that equity appreciation. You're still able to downsize and to pour your equity where you can have, where you're not even concerned about the interest rates.
Yeah.
You're going to go pay cash for that condo. Let's get out of the stairs. Let's stop waiting to see, you know, or sitting there beating ourselves up over that we didn't leave at the table with $500.
Yeah.
You're still winning.
Emily, if I can add just something here that I'm taking away from this is I can hear like your passion in your voice, and I know that you're doing this as in a demonstrative form for the sake of learning, right? Yet these are conversations that you have had with sellers in real life, that your coaching clients have had with sellers in real life, and I think it's important, and I don't want to, you know, vomit role play rumble all over everybody, but guys, I want to make sure we understand the severity of how strong conversations impact the results that we get as real estate agents.
Absolutely. Sarah, I love, you know, Gary said this. I can't remember when he said it. He said it in a mastermind. He said, no real estate closing has ever come without the result of first a conversation.
100%.
A closing is a string of conversations, right? And it's the confidence and the competence of us as agents to be able to help people make great decisions. Our opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we would buy or sell in today's market. It doesn't matter if you know, are like, gosh, they're sitting on this interest rate. What is their motivation? And John, you asked a great question in the chat, and I want to make sure I get to it. How do you respond to buyers? How do you respond when they say that buyers can't afford high interest rates of 7%? And the reality is that facts trump feelings. So if I'm a seller and my mindset is no one's buying, no one can afford these rates, I'm going to pull up my MLS and go, well, let's look at this. The last 7 days, 187 buyers made the decision to go under contract and purchase a home. So it's not about how many buyers are out in the market. What's important is that we identify the one buyer who's willing to pay top dollar for your property. And that's what I do through my marketing and my negotiation strategies. Only one buyer can buy a house, right? Two groups can't go buy that house. They can't go live in the same house. So show the properties that went under contract or sold in the last 7 days, because facts trump feelings. And the reality is that the real estate market is still strong. In fact, we're outproducing this year what Gary and the market predictions were for this year. We're actually outperforming those, and prices have not, you know, dropped significantly. And for some of you in your markets, you're going, well, Emily, gosh, it's a war out here. Prices are not dropping at all for us. And that's great, but it's getting your seller in the mindset and helping them make the decision to price it correctly, because if you don't, we've got to pace them to the future negative. And you've got to be confident, and you got to be competent, and the information that you're sharing such that you move them forward. Because so many sellers, I see so many agents that are giving out great information. We're not helping them make decisions. The goal of
now, that's all anyone needed to hear. I'm kidding.
Yeah, the goal of this is just to help them make great decisions.
Yeah. But we got Emily by the confidence in our conversations that we're having.
That's exactly right. Yep. Who else has questions, or is there anything that you'd like to say? We've got a few minutes.
It's already been half an hour. My goodness.
I think there's a lot of other factors that drive the pricing, condition of the property, the area, you know, just there's so many other things. Not just, you know.
Richard, you're 100% right. I always tell sellers there are really three things that drive price. It's location, condition, the market. And I would almost yield, I always kind of use I'm like, and there's a bonus, my marketing, right? And that's your choice, right? You can't change your location. You can't control the market, and you can't control the condition to a fact, right? You can control the condition to a point. And you can do that through pre-inspections. And there are lots of different strategies that you can go about that, or even upgrading or things like that. However, what we can control is we can control who we decide to market with and who we decide to negotiate with.
Emily, other than pricing, what would you say is like a second tier objection that agents really need to have in their quiver, right? I don't know if it was Megan or Anna who described like all these different conversations to have like in our quiver of arrows so we can pull one out and shoot it when we need to. Other than pricing, which I know we can all agree that pricing is a priority in a listing consultation. What else comes to mind for you, or what have you heard in your coaching conversations, or in Mega Listing Agent rather, where it's another really impactful conversation or dialogue that an agent needs to be prepared with to secure a listing?
The biggest one is, it's just honestly, y'all, it's market objections. We have two kinds of objections. We have market objections and we have appointment objections. Those are two completely different things. Appointment objections are like, I'm interviewing multiple agents, commission, right? Like that kind of stuff. I need to speak with my spouse. Market objections are interest rates, affordability. Is it the right time to sell? What's going to happen with the market, right? That's market objections. If you nail your market objections, you win in this market, because our market objections are at an all-time high right now. The question I like to ask people when they say, well, Emily, why would I leave my 3.5% interest rate and go over here to the 7? And I say, well, that's a great question. Help me understand why you would do that.
Yeah. What makes now the right time to sell?
Right? So it's just putting that back, but it's also making sure that you know what to say. Lisa, yes.
Megan's here.
That was my question. Most people are like, yeah, I can't afford what's out there. I want to move, but I can't afford a new higher, payment.
Absolutely. So I always just flip it back on them. I go, yeah, the interest rates are really high right now. Help me understand why now's the time. What's important to you about making this move? And you just walk them through that.
Yeah. It's important to remember that buyers and sellers will always buy and sell when they have a reason to do so.
That's right.
I don't know what Harvey's doing on the screen here, Harvey, but you're giving us some doodles.
All right. So we are launching Role Play Rumble next week. We trust that this was helpful. Thank you all so much for showing up and working on your skill with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to personally reach out to us. We trust that this was helpful. Have a great day, y'all.
Just to apologize, I didn't realize that was that everybody was seeing.
Harvey, I'm giving you a hard time. I think it's so funny. This is great. That's all we need on a Friday afternoon, right? I love it.
Exactly. I'm sorry for that.
Bye, Harvey.
Take care. Thanks for this.